Robbins Illinois growth chart. Now, I was born in Robbins. Robbins started as a tiny, all-black village, founded in the post-slavery era by blacks who wanted a voice in their own government and in the development and growth of their souls. Robbins has produced and been home to an abnormally large number of superstars, such as Michelle Nichols, who was Uhura on Star Trek, Keke Palmer, who starred in Aquila and the Bee, Mr. T. Lawrence Terrell, the A-Team, Tiny Topsy, a blues singer, Addie Bradley, a recording artist, I went to school with her, 3 black Civil War soldiers, 10 Tuskegee Airmen, 2 Harlem Globetrotters, 2 Olympic champions, Dwayne Wade, an NBA superstar, James Smith Watts, a Super Bowl star for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They won the Super Bowl that year. Glenn Hudson, international kickboxing champion, and Kelly, EKG, Extreme Kelly Warrior, a female professional wrestler of internet fame. Now, yet Robbins is one of the highest poverty areas in Cook County. Why has this tiny village produced so many stars? What is the spirit that guides and governs the people of Robbins? The faith in their ability to govern themselves was the spirit that provided the energy and vision for the early growth of Robbins. Now, Robbins first received federal assistance in the late 1960s, and thereafter the growth of Robbins mirrored the growth of the nation, and the spirits governing the United States is shown by a brief review of history. This is a chart. In the early days, like between 1917 and 1960, Robbins had a lot of, these are homegrown businesses and enterprises. There were quite a few of them. I'm not going to read them all, but it's like an ice house, cleaners, plowing, gas stations, a skating rink, a newspaper, car wash. We had an airport, a laundromat, hardware stores, a library, a dentist, a doctor, barbershops, beauty shops, funeral parlors. There was a pharmacy, a pool hall, quite a few businesses. And then in later years, once they started getting federal assistance, the initiative dropped. Now, I'm not saying there were no businesses here, and there were things happening here, but not at the level that there were in the beginning. Okay, now Robbins was founded on December 14, 1917, which was during World War I. Now, at that time, Russia had withdrawn from the war, and the Romanov dynasty, which had been governing Russia, was overthrown. And Lenin and Trotsky turned Russia into a communist country, the Soviet Union. Now, Tsar Nicholas II had been married to Alexandra, the granddaughter of Queen Victoria of England. Now, during World War I, Tsar Nicholas II allied with France and King Edward VII of England. Now, King Edward VII was the son of Queen Victoria. Now, they were fighting against Russia, France, and England fought against Kaiser William II of Germany, who was the grandson of Queen Victoria. So in essence, what I'm saying is World War I was essentially a family fight, and all these people got killed, and all this money was spent in a family fight. Now, fights between members of dominant royal families of Europe occurred frequently between 500 and 1900 AD. England was the last dominant European royalty. Now, at the start of World War I, Tsar Nicholas II expelled his generals and took command of the army for the first time in his life. The war went badly for Russia with massive fatalities. The only son of the Tsar and Queen Alexandra was a hemophiliac, and the queen hired Rasputin, a demented holy man. Now, Rasputin took over much of the government and brought the church back into Russia. Now, you probably remember hearing tales about Rasputin. I think there were several movies about him. Anyway, Russia was bankrupt and in shambles. Food riots broke out in the capital. The Tsar ordered his soldiers to fire on the protesters. The army revolted and joined the protesters, and the royal family was overthrown and executed. Now here's a picture of them just before they were, when they were in prison, and that's before they were executed, of course. Anyway, a Soviet. Lenin and Trotsky established a communist state, the Soviet Union. Okay, now a Soviet is a governing council elected by and representative of the people. The Soviet Union consists of village, town, local, intermediate, and national Soviets that are organized into a pyramidal structure. Now, I put all these stars over Lenin's head because imagine the force and the power that he had to use to get these people who had been enslaved for 300-some years to revolt. That took a lot. Now, Stalin has been degraded and talked about, but Stalin built this country. Stalin said we have got to build up Russia if we're going to hold back the United States and Britain. Otherwise, they will come and enslave us. And he enslaved those people. And he worked them to, but he did it. He built up Russia to compete against the United States. Now, 1917 to 1918 was a new beginning for people of Robbins. They began evolving or creating a self-governing village, a community within the nation and government of the United States. The United States also had a new beginning. As a major world power, it took an active role in evolving and growing the world. It was the start of the cycle of communism versus capitalism, or East versus West. It was a chance to recognize and know evolutionary good from evolutionary evil. Which is better, the capitalist society or the communist? Now, the U.S. is a capitalist country, which means that most machinery and materials of production are owned by private individuals and corporations, as opposed to ownership by the government. In other words, the U.S. is governed directly or indirectly by private commercialists and traders. Now, communism is a lifestyle in which goods are owned in common and are available to all as needed. Communism is the natural lifestyle of communities of native people, free native people. Now, ancient Egyptians and Sumerians stated that they were ruled by gods around 12,000 to 7,000 years ago, and gods established communistic villages. Communism was the lifestyle of Native American Indians, natives of Africa, Europe, Asia, India, and South America. Communism was the lifestyle of the earliest Christians who lived in communes, which they called churches. Now, pure communism consists of self-governing, self-sufficient communities of people who are learning to become governors or rulers or gods unto themselves. Jesus said, mankind are gods. Now, in John 10:24-39, and on another place he said, I say you are gods. Anyway, man's purpose is to evolve to a co-created God who directs and governs the creation of the earth from the celestial world. Now, Protestant means protesting. In the 16 and 1700s, protesting Catholics withdrew from the Catholic Church and became Protestants. Now, Baptist fundamentalism is a Protestant religion that was created by British slave breeders during the rule of the English Stuart dynasty. Fundamentalism spread to the United States in the 1800s. Now, in 1850, the Alabama Baptist Association declared, intelligent masters with the light of experience before them will regard the communication of sound religious instruction to their slaves as the truest economy and the most efficient police. So they were attempting to use the Baptist religion to control the slaves. Now, slave breeding and the creation of ritual, false religions, has occurred for over 200,000 years. Slave breeders breed specific traits and know cycles of reincarnating spirits. Acknowledge that certain mysteries, knowledge, and truths were not for everyone. In the Gospels of Matthew and Mark, Jesus said to his apostles, to you it has been given to know the secrets of the kingdom of heaven, and to them it has not been given. Now, at that time, those people didn't have science, so they couldn't understand the science of creation. The Greeks had it, but the people in Palestine at the time of Christ, that was the time of enslavement. Okay, now parables are short, simple, usually fictitious stories about everyday, commonplace occurrences and events from which a moral or religious lesson may be learned. Jesus knew they wouldn't understand if he spoke in science, so he told them little stories. He says, therefore speak I to them in parables, because they see not, and hearing they hear not, neither do they understand. And in them is fulfilled the prophecy of Isaiah, which said, by hearing ye shall hear and shall not understand, and seeing ye shall see and shall not perceive. And with many such parables spake he the word unto them, as they were able to hear it. But without a parable spake he not unto them. And when they were alone, he expounded all things to his disciples. Now Jesus knew the barbarians would create a false ritual religion, and he knew truth could be derived by assimilating science and history. Therefore he taught, ask and it shall be given you. Seek and ye shall find. Knock and it shall be opened unto you. For everyone that asketh receiveth, and he that seeketh findeth, and to him that knocketh it shall be opened. Now Tertullian is described as a father of the early Catholic Church around 160 to 220 A.D. Now Tertullian said, a wayward seeking where you never find, for there's nothing to be found. A wayward knocking, because it will never open, for there is no one to open. And a wayward asking, because you will never be heard, for the one you ask does not hear, which is exactly opposite from what Jesus taught.